all kinds of models there that represent something to do with economics and finances and so on. A production possibilities curve is one of those types of models that we use to measure the different possibilities we have when we decide to make an economic choice. Businesses use production possibility curves to try to look at the various products they can make with the limited resources they have. So we learned in the first section that resources are limited. Apple is a very, very, very rich company. However, their resources are limited. They can only make so many iPhones. They can only make so many iPads. Okay, Chevrolet, General Motors makes Chevrolet and Cadillac and Buick. They can't make unlimited amounts of each of those. Their resources are limited. So a production possibilities curve is used to help a company figure out what combination of products they can make with the resources they have. Okay, there are four assumptions of a PPC. We're going to refer to the production possibilities curve as a PPC. The four assumptions are that resources are fixed. In other words, we have a certain amount of resources, and that's what we're going to make our products from. Secondly, we're going to assume that all resources are fully employed. So what that means is we're not wasting anything. That means all of our employees are working to 100% of their capability at all times. Okay, so nothing is being wasted. All right, so if we worked at Papa John's and the pizzas are coming through, we're assuming there's not one mistake made in making any of those pizzas. They're all going through, they're all made perfectly, they're all paid for by customers. Okay, and everybody's working as hard as they can. The third assumption is that we can only produce two things. Okay, why? Because a graph has an x-axis and a y-axis, so therefore we can only put two products on a PPC at any one given time. And lastly, we're going to assume that technology is fixed. So that means we have our technology that we make our product with, and we're not buying any new technology that's going to make it more efficient or whatever. We're just assuming that technology is fixed. We're making these four assumptions. Okay, let's go here. So we're going to look at this on a graph, but the two main concepts that are revealed by a PPC are efficiency. Efficiency means producing the maximum amount of goods and services possible. In other words, again, we're not wasting anything. Okay, so when we're operating at efficiency, that means everybody's working hard, nobody's making any mistakes, none of our resources are being wasted in any way. Now, the other concept is underutilization, which is producing fewer goods and services than possible. So if I owned a Papa John's and some orders came in for some pizzas, and we made the pizzas and we ran them through, and the pizzas ordered were pepperoni and mushroom, but we made the three pizzas, and then when they came out of the oven, we realized they're all sausage and mushroom. Okay, we can't do anything with those pizzas now. We just set them aside, and maybe the employees will eat them later or whatever. Okay, or they might even get thrown away. But the point is, that is underutilization. We're not utilizing all our resources because we made some mistakes. Okay, the law of increasing opportunity costs. Okay, so if we're making two products, let's say that we have a bakery, and we're making loaves of bread, and we're making bran muffins. And let's say I decide I'm making a combination of 50 bran muffins and 12 loaves of bread. And I decide I want to make more muffins. That means I have to make less loaves of bread. Why? Go back to the four assumptions. Our resources are fixed. We only have so much flour and other ingredients to make our product. So when we decide we're going to make more muffins than we do bread, our opportunity costs increase. And we'll be able to see this better when you look at it on a graph. Okay. The reason for the increase in opportunity costs. The cost of making one or more product. You may need new resources. You may need to retool machines. You have to build more new factories. You might have to retrain workers. So, for example, if the price of gasoline, say there was a war that broke out in the Middle East, and the price of gasoline went up really like up to $5 a gallon. All of a sudden, people that have big SUVs, they're going to go to the dealership and they're going to trade them in and get smaller cars because they can't afford the gas. So Nissan, Chevy, Toyota, all the car companies, they're going to have to switch from making big SUVs to making smaller cars. That will increase their opportunity costs. Why? Because they have to buy new resources. They have to retool their machines, their robots. They may even have to adjust or build more factories, and they're going to have to retrain their workers. And while they're doing that, they're producing nothing. If you're retraining workers, they're not working on the line, they're being trained. So all that increases. That's what opportunity cost is in real life. Okay. We can also use a PPC to look at the production possibilities of a country. Okay, so for example, a good example would be the United States of America. When it was first formed in 1783, after the Revolutionary War, and they started the Articles of Confederation. Before the war, there were 13 colonies that went from New England all the way down to Georgia. And it only went as far inland as far as Pennsylvania or Virginia do now. So that's all the United States of America was at that time. Now, after the war, the Treaty of Paris, which was negotiated with the British, gave the United States all the land over to the Mississippi River. So what that did for our production possibilities, it allows us, land is a huge resource. You can farm, you can produce lumber on it, there's minerals below the land, and so our production possibilities increased greatly after the Revolutionary War. Then, in 1803, Thomas Jefferson was president, and he bought the Louisiana Purchase from Napoleon in France. And the Louisiana Purchase gave us all the land west of the Mississippi over to the Rocky Mountains. That land was it was for $15 million. It turned out to be less than a penny an acre. Again, this land gave us this massive amount of resources, so the production possibilities curve increased again to the right. Why? Because we can produce more stuff now. We have way more land, way more resources. Then, after the war with Mexico in 1848, we got the Mexican Cession, which gave us all the land, which is now basically Colorado, Nevada, California, New Mexico, Arizona, and California. And so we got all that land. And then in another treaty with Great Britain, we got what is today Oregon and Washington. Then in 1867, we acquired Alaska from Russia. And then finally in the 1950s, Hawaii became a state. And so all that increased our production possibility. And when we look at a graph, you'll be able to see how that makes the graph keep shifting to the right, to the right, to the right. Now, another example might be Saudi Arabia. 100 years ago, Saudi Arabia didn't have a lot of economic things going on. But when oil was discovered there, that took their production possibilities and shifted it to the right. Okay. Now, if a new fuel were developed that we didn't need oil anymore, then the production possibilities curve for Saudi Arabia may shift back to the left. It may go down because that one resource they have a lot of, is no longer has the value it used to have. So a production possibilities curve would shift to the right when you're increasing resources of value. It would shift to the left when you're decreasing those resources. Okay. Last, section 4. Statistics are things that economists use a lot of. Okay, so stats, short for statistics. Stats are simply numerical data or information that show patterns of human behavior. Okay, so there's all kinds of things statistics show. They can use statistics to create economic models, like a PPC. Or the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal especially, you can go in there and find all kinds of statistics, and then you can take them and make graphs of them and create economic models and so on. So statistics are one of the key tools of economics. Okay, so an economic model takes all the variables that are involved. They make certain assumptions about those variables, and they can be expressed in like a report. They can get a written report, which would be words. They can show it in graphs. They can show it in mathematical equations. They can show it in pie charts, line graphs, all kinds of things. Okay. What they're looking for in all that data is trends, okay, or relationships. All right, so they might want to look at the relationship between a person's age and cell phone usage. Okay, so for example, millennials tend to rely much more on their cell phones for all kinds of things than do people that are, say, in older age groups. So economists would be interested in that. Who would be interested in data like that would be Apple, Samsung, and the digital companies would want to know how millennials are responding to the use of their cell phones. And then they can reveal it on charts and graphs. They can use line graphs, bar graphs, pie charts, and so on. Two things we'll look at in this class. There are two main fields of economics. There's microeconomics and macroeconomics. Okay, so when you take science, you go to biology, you use a microscope to look at small things. Okay, so microeconomics studies small individual things in the economy. Okay, so it looks at individual behavior, it looks at family behavior, it looks at individual businesses. So a study of the effect of the Tennessee Titans on the economy of Nashville, that would be microeconomics, because they're only looking at Nashville, they're only looking at the Tennessee Titans, and they're trying to find out how does it impact